Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Let's just jump right in because we've got a truly wild snapshot in time to look at today, July 2026. We're going to connect the dots across a month that was honestly defined by some pretty surprising economic triumphs, super intense political friction, and a global sporting event that absolutely shattered records. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, a July 2026 global snapshot. Second, how AI is driving market resilience. Third, Dr. Fauci's heated Senate hearing. Fourth, simmering geopolitical tech tensions. And fifth, the 2026 World Cup Final. We're going to seamlessly tie together the macroeconomy, domestic politics, global flashpoints, and end on a massive global spectacle. Section 1. July 2026 Global Snapshot, the macroeconomy. So, looking at the big picture, despite a ton of global headwinds, the economy has been surprisingly resilient. And a massive anchor for this stability? Incredibly strong corporate earnings. In fact, analysts are projecting earnings per share for the S&P 500 to grow by a staggering 24% in 2026. Which brings us to this seriously impressive number, 10.2%. That was the return for the S&P 500 in just the first half of the year. Now, why does this matter for your wallet? Well, it shows that even with all the geopolitical conflicts and shifting trade policies out there, foundational business growth is still driving really strong returns for investors. Section 2. AI drives market resilience, a broadening market. A lot of the initial credit for this year's economic resilience went straight to those massive tech companies. But as we're about to see, market strength is finally spreading out way beyond just a handful of tech giants. This broadening is just brilliant to see. I mean, while large-cap stocks in the S&P 500 grew by that very respectable 10.2%, look at the mid and small caps. The S&P 400 mid-cap index returned 17.3%, and the Russell 2000 small-cap index absolutely surged by 22.6%. So small and mid-cap stocks dramatically outperformed the massive tech giants. This points to a much healthier, broader market, which frankly benefits a way wider array of everyday investors. Let's move to and see how this builds into the AI sector. The artificial intelligence boom is really maturing. Investment is rapidly expanding way beyond just the semiconductor chips that process AI, and it's shifting right into the physical infrastructure you need to actually power the whole shebang. We're talking massive capital flowing into data centers, heavy networking equipment, and electrical power infrastructure. It's literally the industrial side of the digital revolution. But, it's not all perfectly smooth sailing. Despite this strong growth, inflation remains stubbornly above the Fed's 2% target. Why? Well, it's largely due to these sticky, labor-intensive sectors, shelter costs, healthcare, and restaurants. And because of these lingering inflation pressures, the new Federal Reserve Chairman, Kevin Warsh, decided to hold the policy rate steady at 3.50 to 3.75%. So the economy is showing this impressive broad-end resilience. But while the market stabilized, what exactly was happening in Washington? Well, the short answer is an incredibly intense, high-friction environment in U.S. domestic politics. Section 3. Fauci's heated Senate hearing, deep political divides. This brings us straight to a highly contentious Senate hearing regarding the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was spearheaded by Committee Chairman Rand Paul. The hearing was really defined by a stark clash between the two. On one side, Senator Paul aggressively accused Dr. Fauci of a straightforward pattern of private alarm and public deception. He alleged that federal agencies actually funded dangerous gain-of-function research in Wuhan, and that communications were deliberately deleted. On the flip side, Dr. Fauci, citing a desire to avoid what he called an effort to embarrass and intimidate him, invoked his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, based on the advice of his attorneys. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the absolute nature of that silence. Dr. Fauci maintained a total refusal to testify. He invoked the Fifth Amendment even when asked incredibly basic questions like what day of the week it was or the color of the tie he was wearing. It really showcases just how completely locked down these proceedings became. The pushback against the hearing was equally fierce. Dr. Fauci's legal team slammed the proceedings, describing them as a pathological obsession of retribution and revenge by Senator Paul. Meanwhile, Democratic senators on the committee, led by Senator Gary Peters, condemned the entire hearing as a partisan exercise designed to pursue predetermined conclusions through scapegoating. Basically, it was a stark display of deeply entrenched political polarization in Washington. Section 4. Simmering geopolitical tech tensions, global flashpoints. Now, if we zoom out just a bit, We can see that all of this domestic political friction was being closely mirrored by escalating tensions on the global stage. Across the globe, July 2026 was honestly a bit of a powder keg. China was actively urging the US to revoke a ban on foreign humanoids, and they were warning of countermeasures. Over in the Middle East, Iraq was condemning US-Saudi strikes while unveiling new security measures. At the exact same time, the US sanctioned 8 tankers and 10 entities for their alleged role in the Iranian oil trade. So, yeah, the global environment was just as heated as the Senate floor. Section 5. The 2026 World Cup Final, a global spectacle. With all that heavy economic and political tension in the air, the world badly needed a release valve, right? And we definitely found one in a historic sporting spectacle that united over 80,000 roaring fans at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. We are talking about the 2026 FIFA World Cup Final. And honestly, the stakes couldn't have been higher. For the very first time in World Cup history, 2 reigning continental champions faced off in the final. We had Spain, the European champions, taking on Argentina, who were not only the defending World Cup winners, but also the Copa America champions. Now, Spain's journey to this championship match was nothing short of an incredible gauntlet. In the knockout stages alone, they had to take down a consecutive string of European powerhouses. First, they defeated Austria, then they edged past Portugal, took down Belgium, and finally defeated France 2-0 in the semifinal. So by the time they reached the final, they were thoroughly battle-tested. When the final kicked off, Spain totally dominated possession, but they ran straight into a brick wall. That wall was Argentina's goalkeeper, Emiliano Martinez. The number 11 here represents the absolute record-breaking number of saves Martinez made in a World Cup final. His heroic efforts created an incredibly tense, completely goalless regulation time. Actually, it was the first time ever that a World Cup final saw a team, Argentina in this case, after a red card, fail to register a single shot in regulation time. Crazy, right? So, the crucial point is that this deadlock had to be broken in extra time. And it was Ferran Torres who finally found the back of the net from a Nico Williams header, securing a 1-0 victory for Spain. This win was historically massive, folks. Not only was it Spain's second men's title, but it made them the very first country in history to simultaneously hold both the men's and women's World Cup titles. No way, right? Just a huge moment for Spanish football. And before we wrap up the sports section, I have to share this bizarre but very real fact from the match. This was the first ever World Cup final to feature a full-blown American-style halftime show. But it ended up dragging on so long that the halftime break lasted over 27 minutes. That blatantly violated the official protocols of the International Football Association Board. I guess even in a highly regulated global final, things don't always go according to the rulebook. Man, what a snapshot in time. We've seen how physical AI infrastructure and broadened market participation are driving some very real economic resilience. We've witnessed the absolute lockdown of deep political divides in Washington, plus simmering tensions across the globe. And of course, we've felt the unifying, record-breaking thrill of a historic World Cup final. It all begs the question, if July gave us all of this, what on earth will the rest of 2026 hold for us? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.